So we're going to cover off a little bit of traditional finance today, because that's sort of where it's what has led, for the most part, this major sell-off that we have seen. Although, in saying that, Bitcoin was probably more on the downturn just ahead of time, but nonetheless, we'll jump into the Nikkei, because this is where I believe a lot of the largest selling off has occurred. So you can see it has had very decent sell-off from its peak. It's roughly sitting around 22% down. Now, in traditional finance, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty certain that a sell-off of 20% or more is then considered the bear market. Just like when you are in a bear market, when you have a 20% increase in price, that then traditionally signals a bull market. But for the Nikkei, I'm still not of the mindset that we're in a bear market just yet. The reason being is we're still holding this little consolidation period over here. And we could see it pretty much stop dead on just below that consolidation period, but didn't break below this wick over here. Now, when you look at it on this screen, it actually does look pretty bad. When you look at these moves and then a big sell-off. But if we go to a yearly chart, we're actually bang on where we opened up the year at. And once you start looking at it on a yearly chart, things actually look so bad anymore. So whilst it has had a massive sell-off, it also had a massive run-up and has literally just come to put in a wick to the bottom side of the yearly open, which, as we can see, got hardly any wick to the bottom of the yearly open. This is the candle for the yearly open here. It went down bugger all, really. Now we can see itself. This is on the quarterly chart, forming that wick to the bottom. So provided that this low over here is hold, where I've got the little white line, I'm still fairly confident that the Nikkei can still continue to go up. That would be if I was directly invested in the Nikkei, which I sort of am. I've got I'm in an Asian ETF. I think it's like the top 50 companies in Asia in an ETF. I am in that. So I don't have direct exposure here. I've got sort of indirect exposure. But if I was directly involved in the stock market, if we started to see some closes below this level at around 30,000, then I would start looking to exit, because that would start to signal to me that we're now can start consolidate. Maybe we get a bounce up, but ultimately a downtrend is ensuing. But whilst we're hanging up here, that's okay. Getting back above these tops at around that 33,500 mark is going to be really good. May not happen right now. We do have the entire month to get back above this level. But if it does get back above there, then that's actually quite bullish, given how steep of a drop it is and the fact that we've bounced back up above previous consolidation zones. That would be really good. Now, I suppose everyone's probably asking what caused this sell-off. And it's interesting because the Japanese central bank raised their interest rates by 0.25%. And something as dramatic as that has actually caused the sell-off. I mean, as we could see on the yearly open, it had been straight up. So there was going to be some sort of correction coming regardless. perhaps not as steep as what this was, but it was due for a correction nonetheless. But yeah, it was the raising of the interest rates by 0.25% that was the catalyst. And you might think 0.25%, it's it's not a big deal. Like it's really not. It's not going up 5% like what we've seen over a sustained period in other areas of the world. But for the Japanese, they've been on 0% or negative interest rates for, I think it's around 17 years, or it's been a long, long, long time without any interest rate hikes into the positive. So for them to now have an interest rate hike, it's like a shake. It shocks the system more or less. They've essentially been lending out money for free for a very, very long time. Now, what sort of impact has that had on global markets? Well, it has. It's had a flow-on effect. And we can jump into the yen. And we can see the yen has been going down in a downtrend for the best part of the last 15 years. But if we go into a weekly, see it's had a pretty decent pump over the last few weeks since the yen has been it's had a pretty decent pump since we've had the interest rates go up in Japan. So now a lot of Japanese investors were borrowing money for free, turning it into USD, getting involved in T-bills, getting involved in the stock market, and now the interest rates are going up. They're now having to pay interest on their loans, and so they're selling out of their SPX. They're selling out of T-bills. They're fleeing the USD back into the yen to repay their loans. So this is why we're seeing the yen now gaining on the US dollar. We're seeing the Dixie pulling back because now the US dollar's losing strength because the money is getting out of the US dollar into the yen. And that's actually quite interesting. I haven't been on the Dixie chart since all of this has sort of happened. And it's found support right on the bottom of this parallel channel. Now, I wonder if we're going to see a bit of a grind up, or perhaps it's about time to break out of this channel. Maybe we get a little bit of sideways and then it tips out and capitulates. That would be interesting to see. But anyway, and then so from there we jump into the SPX, and we're seeing a sell off in the SPX as well, which was actually quite interesting because actually I'll jump into the futures chart because it looks a bit cleaner. It was back here when we got the 3 days down near the top. I actually put a post in Premium saying that we got 3 days down. Want to see what sort of happens, but I'm starting to lean towards at least sideways action, towards a bit of a pullback, bit of a retrace over the coming weeks. And that was back here at 5,600 points. And lo and behold, we're now down quite a bit from that point. We'll see what sort of pullback we've got here from the top. Down about 10.5% from that point. It can still go lower. It definitely can still go lower. And there's nothing wrong with it going lower either. So jump out to the weekly chart. So this is a fairly key pullback over here back in October last year. It's testing the breakout of this zone, this accumulation period. We got the low in October 22. So we got the 50% level down here at about 4,900 points. You know, we could see a bit of a sweep of this low before we get a bounce up, which is still a fair ways off where we are right now. Doesn't have to get down here. I'm not saying that it has to get down to there, but I would not be surprised if it did. That's another 5.5% away. Ideally, we don't break this low here at 49.60. But we can wick below to this 50% level and then bounce back above it. That would be fine. It's coming into a bit of support, and we've got a bit of a bounce off these tops in here at about 5,100. So this correction might be, it could be over quicker than it started. We're now 4th week down. We could start to see a bit of a sideways before it starts to push back out again. But yeah, I'm really not concerned about this chart either. I mean, it's not going to go just straight up. We are going to have a bit of a bumpy ride, pullbacks, and now we're having a larger pullback here, probably much similar to what we had over here. Could be even a little bit sharper. But it's not, for me, things aren't over. We get these big pullbacks and the worst news at the bottoms. I've said it time and time again. We've now 10.5% down, and we're starting to talk about recession fears, unemployment rates are rising, talking about emergency Fed meetings. This is all extremely common sort of news that you hear when you do get these lows. We got this March low here. We got the jump out back in October 22. The low was formed. This is when Elon tweeted that we're going to have a multi-year bear market. The economy's stuffed. Mark the low. Then in this period here, where Michael Burry saying he's selling everything, market's going to collapse at the low. Then in March 23, we had the banking collapses and the banking system's about to fail. But that also marked a low. So what I'm trying to say is when we're hearing these really bad news events, it's typically signals a turning point of the market, where we're going to, that's sort of at the end of the correction. Is what we're hearing in the US at the moment bad enough news to signal the bottom? It might not be. There could still be some more failures to come, which is why we need to be open to sort of coming down a bit further. But what we are starting to hear is definitely that the low is definitely closer than what we think. And we're seeing it pullbacks everywhere, like the UK 100 pulling back. I haven't updated this chart in a little while. There's still a lot of room to pull back here on the FTSE. Aussie markets pulled back quite significantly, but we're still a long way up. For the Aussie market, we're still holding we're testing the prior all-time highs, but the sentiment that people are feeling is quite bearish. Talking about recession, etc. We weren't talking about recession when we were up at these highs over here. We were talking, we're looking to make all-time highs. Markets are going along very nicely, and now we're at the exact same level, but we're talking with so much fear in our voices, what we're reading, etc. So it's amazing how we can be at the exact same price that we might have been, a couple of years ago, or even back here when we were breaking out 8 months ago, 7 months ago. We're breaking out. We're going to be making new all-time highs. Now we're back down testing the level, and the world's going to end. Within a 12-month period. Euro going along famously. This actually is quite exciting for me. We've broken out of the parallel channel here. We've tested it for support, and it's bounced perfectly off the channel. Now we're coming up to test this 50% level. It's been tested numerous times before, as we can see. Even got above it, but came back down because the top of the channel acted as resistance. Once this breaks through this level, it's going to be off to the races, I think, as far as Forex goes anyway. I don't think it's going to be moving like what we saw the yen move, but it's going to start continuing this uptrend. Now over to Bitcoin. Actually, maybe we'll start Bitcoin dominance. So I have not updated these charts in a little while. That's cool. We'll go to the daily. There we go, 4 hourly, where the chart might look nicer. All right, so in our last public catch up that we had, I think it was over in the Sweat server, I talked about 2 different options. I believe we were back over here when I talked about them. I'd sort of said my primary idea was that we were going to capitulate from this level. We weren't going to get above that 57%, which obviously has not happened. And then my second idea, or my secondary idea, was to sweep this high up to around that 57.2. It's gone a bit higher, 57.3 on this chart. I think it's a bit weird. On the daily, it gets to 57.3, but on the hourly, it gets up to nearly 58%. Nonetheless, sweep the high, fall back below, and then test that 57% level before hopefully capitulating. I'm sure that most of us are holding alts, and we would welcome a capitulation very much so. But yeah, it looks like it could be playing out. We did get into the purple zone. We haven't had a daily close in the purple zone. So the fact that it's wicked up and fallen back below is a good sign. And it's actually going down as we speak, which is great to see as well. I think that for me, Bitcoin dominance is topping out. It's completing its top here. We're getting potentially double top, ready for that downtrend. So I like to just have a bit of fun, smiley face. That's what we'll all have if we see the dominance start coming back down again. So all eyes on the Bitcoin dominance for our alt bags. I'm not going to really go into the into altcoin USD charts today. They're wrecked. We don't want to see them. I will have a look at a couple against Bitcoin though, because that is what is important, at least for me. What would be invalidation of this would be if Bitcoin dominance ends up getting back above this 57%, this old high, and starts getting, I would be generous and I'd say if it gets 3 daily closes in a row, 3 consecutive daily closes above 57%, then we're going up. It's going to head to, I don't know, 60%, something like that. But this idea would then be invalidated. And it's always important to have an idea, but then also have invalidation of an idea. If you get too gung-ho on an idea, you can become too one-eyed, and when the unexpected happens, you're not prepared for it. You're not ready for it, and it can play with your psyche quite a bit as well. I mean, it doesn't mean that you're then right because you're open to another idea. It just means that you've looked at, well, okay, if this goes back up here and gets a few closes, well, my idea is wrong. So we go back to the drawing board. We don't start wondering, well, why the hell has it done this? I've looked at the charts and it has to go down. Well, no, it doesn't. That's what you think. That's what you want to see happen, but it doesn't have to happen that way. I might just jump over here for a sec. G'day, dogs. G'day, Ringo. Good to see you guys. All right, we'll jump into the BTC chart. Now, this has definitely sold off a lot further than what I thought it was going to. As you guys over premium know, on Sunday morning, I was definitely concerned going into the weekly close. I really wanted to see a bit of a bounce. Oh, this is Monday. As we came down, I'll go into a 4-hour chart. It might look a bit better. So I was around here when we saw this sell off on Sunday night for me, which would have been perhaps around Sunday lunchtime for a lot of you guys. Saw this sell off, and then we saw this wick down to 57k and a bit of a bounce. I really was hoping, was more hopeful than anything, and I'm pretty sure I did write that. I was more hopeful than anything to see a bit of a bounce up, bit of a recovery going into that weekly close, getting above that 60k level back into the range, because I was been waiting for a capitulation candle to occur, and I thought, if we get back up here, and then we can capitulate down into that 59k area, fill half of this wick perhaps, and then off we go. But it didn't eventuate that way. We actually got rejected back off the old range, and then we went into a capitulation where we saw crazy amounts of volume. I've actually got liquidation chart up, liquidations off the Richter scale. As we can see on the far right, the liquidations are akin to back in March, and the day has still got another 4 hours to go. Volumes 8 hours into the day of trading was as much as back in April, the April low. No, the July low. In 8 hours, there was the same amount of volume as back on the July low, which is mental. That's a crazy amount of volume. There's like $500 million 15-minute candles on Binance. Not consistent $500 million candles, but on those capitulations, those big liquidation events that we were seeing as it was on its downtrend, there was getting a shitload of volume coming in. These are signals of a bottom coming in, or a top for that matter. As we can see back in March towards the far left, where we've got the massive liquidation event of longs, that marked that pullback before it continued up to make the all-time high. So when you see these high volume liquidations, it is a nice trigger for a bottom or a top. Now, I suppose that the pullback for me has gone down further than what I expected. I do have a few different areas of interest. We've got, and sorry, my chart is a bit hard to see. I've got lots of lines on there. For those that don't know, yellow lines are horizontal supports and resistance. I probably need to update that a little bit down to the downside over here. Then we've got the white line here and up here. That's the parallel channel, which we've broken under. I was sitting at around 54.5k. There is also this orange trend line over here. That is just a trend line from that 56.5k low back in May to the July low, and we wicked below that as well, just in the cascade of liquidation events. But interestingly, the price has actually touched the top and found support at the ETF pump that we saw back in January. And that's literally was the saving grace for it. There's no fibs that you'll find that line up with this level. As you can see, we've got the 786 down here at 46k. That was literally all it is. Week through this zone, and that's just where it ended up. There's nothing else to really explain it. But what we can look for is, okay, what do we not want to see, and what do we want to start seeing? What we want to start seeing is the daily close be above this low at 53.3k. That's what we want to start seeing as the first key level that we want to see reclaimed on the daily. The next key level that we want to see reclaimed on the daily is 56.240, and getting back into the channel. What we don't want to see is closing below this level, closing below this orange trend line. They're the two immediate key levels that we want to start watching. So, we're sitting right on it at the moment, coming into the 4-hour close now. So New York's starting to close up shop as well. It'll be interesting to see what happened with the ETF flows. Personally, I'm hoping for a red day for ETF flows. That would be, if there's a significant red day for ETF flows, where there's, I don't know, maybe 500 mil of outflows, that would also add to the context of this potentially being the bottom. But if it was a green day, then you start thinking that ETF holders didn't get shaken out enough. So yeah, I'll be tuning into the ETFs a bit later just to see what they've sort of done. Hopefully, they all release data within the next maybe 6 hours or so. What would be ultra bullish is if the daily close gets back above 56.240. That would be really good, because then that would allow for tomorrow to potentially come back down, test the bottom of the channel, and then take off. Or worst case, or not worst case, but a less bullish scenario, but still remaining quite bullish, would be to come down and test the trend line before taking off. Please ignore the dates on the bottom. I'm just drawing for the sake of drawing here on the daily time frame. But either one of those two situations is still okay. If we're closing at above this high but not back in the channel, or above that 53.3 level but below this 56k level, I'd say it's probably likely that we might come down and at least test this trend line at around 51.5k. And there is some confluence there as well. Actually, I'll go to the hourly. I think is a bit better. So we can see we've got 618 lines up with it quite nicely. As long as we start closing above that 53.4k, ideally back in the channel, that's fine. We can dip back down, test that trend line, shares confluence with the golden pocket, and start shooting off again. We really don't want to start seeing price breaking down below there. If we do, I'd probably suggest that we're going to be going and testing this low and potentially heading lower. Now, I suppose, what does invalidation for the bull market for Bitcoin look like? So invalidation for the bull market for Bitcoin is actually still a ways off. It's getting below this level at 38,600, which is the previous accumulation zone or consolidation zone that we saw. It's a bit similar to what we're looking at with the Nikkei. How it was around 30,000 points was a low. We saw it potentially putting in a double bottom, and it's recovered about 10% from that low point in regards to the Nikkei. But yeah, getting below this level here is invalidation of the bull market for me. And so I wouldn't be selling necessarily on a test of this low. I'd be waiting for a bit of a jump up and getting a lot lower high in play, and I'll be looking to exit my position then, and come back in 12 months time once the bear market's over. Do I think this is going to happen? No, I don't. Not just yet. But we need to have invalidation and open to the idea that, hey, shit may happen. Our ideas could be wrong, and we might be heading back down. So we might jump into some altcoin BTC charts. Look at Solana. Solana's actually been holding up pretty good from what I've been watching. Yeah, it's actually holding up really well. We can see it's got its lower low there. We've got a high low and another high low. When you've got the dominance, which has been going up, but Solana has also been going up, it's showing some pretty decent strength. So yeah, if I was a Solana holder, that would be instilling a bit of faith in the charts, to be honest. What do we want to see for Solana on this chart? We now want to see this low hold and it coming up and getting above this high, just to continue that trend of putting in higher highs and higher lows. Doesn't have to get above this high just yet. Like, given what's happening in the markets at the moment, it can chill out in this level for another few weeks before it starts testing those highs again. Let's jump into NIA BTC. Yeah, NIA has been a little bit weaker. Yeah, certainly has. All right, so we've broken below these lows, which is not great. Not the end of the world. We're still up when we zoom out. So now that the next key level that we want to watch for NIA is holding this line over here. So you can see back here, it was resistance. It's been solid support over there. So we want to hold this low. If we don't, then we can zoom out to the left a little bit. We then have this area here would be almost like the ultimate low point. Don't want to break back below here because then we're entering back into this accumulation zone that we had, which is we don't want to end up there. It doesn't mean that NIA is not going to go up. It just reduces its strength, and it might just carry up with Bitcoin 1-to-1 as opposed to really pulling away and putting in some serious gains. But we're quite a way off from that being a possibility at the moment. We had a lot of trading in this range over here, and it was also resistance. And I'm sure if we go back over here, this chart may not have a lot of data, but even over here, it acted as support, rejected, resistance. So I'd like to see this level here hold for me. Still definitely bullish on NIA. May not go as high as what we were sort of hoping for, given this sell-off that we've seen now. But it still definitely has a lot of room to go to the upside. That's for sure. We'll have a look at maybe like an XRP BTC. Not that I think any of you guys are XRP holders. The XRP is actually holding up relatively all right. It's still a shit show when you zoom out. Don't get me wrong, but it has broken out of this accumulation period, accumulation zone, and it's holding the line just. It can still fall back down, but it's looking okay when you're looking at such a short period of time. But as we all know, we zoom out and it's just torture. The Solana chart does not look like this. The near chart does not look like this. This is a bad chart. A great example of a bad chart. And even go into DOT would be another one. Okay, now this is a piece of shit. XRP looks like the next meme coin going to the moon compared to DOT. Just continuing to put in lower lows. DOT is looking shocking, and I would not be holding this if you could force me to. Great example of a bad chart. Extremely bad. Probably it's the worst chart to be honest, especially for something that's been around for such a long time. Just a continued bleed and sell off since the last bull market, where it actually did really well, but now it's old news. I don't even know if DOT really gets used that much anymore. Making all-time lows. Surprising one for me is actually MATIC, because it had a bit of a run at the start to midpoint of the bull market. So it did show a bit of promise, yeah. And see here back in the end of 2022, start of 2023, it was showing a lot of promise against Bitcoin, making higher highs against this high over here. Failed to get above this pump up, but that's probably more of a wick if anything. But that has just gone into a massive bleed ever since. So MATIC is also looking extremely poorly. When you look at it from the 2023, 2022 highs back here, just straight down, more or less. Another poor chart to look at. Not as bad as DOT. DOT is horrendous. XRP probably comes in number 2 for worst chart so far. Is there any charts that you guys want me to look at, or questions? Yeah, I actually saw a liquidation yesterday for like 24 mil on a BTC perps. Madness, absolute madness. Okay, Hunter. Yeah, we can have a look at AVAX and Arbitrum. AVAX, BTC. AVAX, not looking good. Not looking good. Probably it's probably on par with the XRP chart, to be completely honest. It's excuse my language, but it's a bee's dick away from making a lower low here. It's really, really not too far. But in saying that, you could be looking at this and saying, well, one bottom, two bottoms, we could be going for a triple bottom perhaps. But when you look at the trend from 2021, the trend is down. So you really want to see a bit of life coming into AVAX on this chart here, and not getting below this low. If it gets below here, bets are off. It's in pretty bad shape. BTC, we might not have a lot of data on this. Yeah, this isn't looking too crash hot either. There isn't a lot of data though for ARB. which is shit, but it's clearly in a downtrend, making lower lows, finding a bottom. It's in discovery, but the wrong way. Not looking good against Bitcoin. I suppose the other thing to note is whilst these charts might be looking bad, and I'd probably be out of the shit charts that we've had a look at, like your dots, your MATICs, AVAX, ARB, XRP. ARB would probably be one that I'd be more willing to take a punt on than those other ones I just mentioned. The reason being is that this is ARB's first cycle. It doesn't have a structure for it to go off. It's only got its launch structure to sort of go off. So it's looking for a bottom. And if we are starting to see BTC top, these could be forming bottoms. There's no structure for ARB, so it could go down. So it definitely is a gamble. It's like playing roulette. But if it does, it's got a lot less resistance behind it for it to go up in comparison to those other coins that we were looking at that have been around for already a cycle. We'll just jump into DOT. We'll go back into DOT. DOT has got so much structure behind it, and all of this is resistance. It's baggage that it's got to then compete with to get back up above. Whereas ARB doesn't have as much baggage because it is a lot newer. If ARB was to take off, I'd definitely be taking some profit when you saw the BTC chart get to around this level, because that's going to be resistance. You might see it pull back a bit and then take off again. But besides, so you got there for resistance, there will be resistance. Then you got the tops. So there's about 3, maybe 4 key layers of key resistance. This is on a weekly chart, and then it's sort of off. Whereas the DOT chart, it's never going to see all-time highs on the Bitcoin chart again. It just won't happen. Well, if it did happen, I'll be going around looking for a unicorn on the street somewhere. That's for me the likelihood. EGLD, yeah, we could look at that. I was actually last cycle. I really liked EGLD, and it was on my list of coins to get this cycle, but I didn't end up doing it. And that was in the early days. But yeah, I did really like EGLD last cycle. So this isn't looking that great either. 2021, massive pump, and it's a long way off from there. It's holding on for dear life onto this low here. It really doesn't want to get back into this accumulation zone. It's not the best looking chart. Not the worst that we've seen, but yeah, it's definitely not the best. We could potentially be putting in a high low at the moment when we zoom right in. We've got the low here, pump up, and now we could potentially be putting in a high low. The trend could be starting to flip. And EGLD can really get going when it wants to. I've seen it pump pretty crazy. I think it was like $600 per token in the last bull cycle, or some crazy number. It got really, really high. I'm not saying that because it could go back there again. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I'm just suggesting that it can really move when it wants to. But similarly to like the DOT chart and XRP charts, etc., it's got a lot of baggage and a lot of key resistance, key levels that it needs to overcome. Even if you just look at tops and bottoms without even using fibs or moving averages, etc., there's resistance. There's more resistance. That'll be minor. Actually, know that we've got some decent resistance here because we've got the old tops, we've got the old support, we've got there, and it just keeps going up and up. So there's a lot of resistance to the upside for EGLD. No, it might be worth a bit of a pump because it is showing a little bit of potential strength, but it's definitely a gamble. A lot of resistance to the upside, but I wouldn't mind if I was looking to take a bit of a punt and feeling a bit risky. Um, you know, you'd be taking a bit of a stab that this could potentially be a high low, and you just have your invalidation is if price takes out this low here. Essentially, that's how that would work for me. You can get in your stop loss, or you sell up if chart gets back down below this point here, because then you know that the trend's still down. That's how I would play it. No worries. We might just take a quick look at Bitcoin and see what's happened since the states markets have closed up. I'm seeing a little bit of just sideways, really. I think we're going to see this running into the daily close. Really interested to see where it ends up. Hopefully, it closes above that 53.4. The higher, the better, and just be ready for that pullback that happens. I'm going to be looking to enter into a long position in this zone here. Invalidation is below there. Is a fair way down. If you are going to take a bit of a punt, use low leverage so you can have that wide stop loss, or small position size to allow you to have that wide stop loss. But for me, just to summarize, I'm very skittish, but I think we may have seen a low here. Time will tell. We'll see where the daily close ends up, and how the rest of the price action starts to play out. Just be mindful that if we do start getting below that 51.5, it's likely coming down to test the low. Yeah, that probably draws us to a close today, guys. I went into a bit more detail than probably what I normally do on the public streams, but yeah, I thought that the times called for it, given what's happened. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evenings or mornings, depending where you are. And yeah, I'll catch you guys next time. It's not on tomorrow, Baldic. Next week. Are you, does next when does next week's one work for you, or because if it doesn't, I can probably push it down a little. I can change the day. Righty, I'm guessing. Being a kung fu fighter. Yeah, no worries. I'll move it to the following day. I'll check my calendar first, make sure it works for me. But yeah, I'll move it. I think at the moment only Starseed has responded to it. Yeah, Starseed and Nomad have responded to it. So I'll make sure that it's all right with Star, just because he has already responded. But if it's all right with him, I'll push it out to the following day. Nah, it's no stress, mate. It's no stress. Don't worry about it. I'm just holding it a day later because I'm going up to the snow for the weekend with the fam. So, but nah, it's all sweet, mate. I want to make it work for you guys, so it's all good. But yeah, all right, I'm gonna get going, mate. You enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'll speak to you.